do a lot of protocol development and training with federal, state agencies. Training also goes into private companies, private individuals as well. On the environmental planning side, environmental assessments, a wide variety of those, permitting, T&E species surveys, jurisdictional delineations. And on the more traditional water resources engineering side, the H&H work, stormwater, watershed studies, flood studies, and more recently into flood mitigation work as well. These are the services that built the company, but as we've grown and added more staff and more talent, we've been able to expand into innovative approaches to sustainability and data analytics, always with that underlying and driving goal of advancing the science of ecosystem restoration. Next slide. Historically, we've worked extensively on the left-hand list here, which is dealing with compliance issues and regulatory requirements. While that remains a core part of our business, we increasingly are working on the right-hand side, which is the non-regulated and voluntary work, working with clients that want to not only evaluate their current operations, but also use nature-based solutions to improve their operations and environmental stewardship. Next slide. Which may raise the question, what do I mean when I say nature-based solutions to address sustainability? So we've got this little graphic here I'm going to describe. Development projects can lead to a number of negative environmental impacts. I've listed out 5 main buckets or themes, as we call them, over on the left-hand side of the slide. And those include water quantity, water quality, air quality, biodiversity and habitats, and socioeconomics. While development can have positive socioeconomic impacts through job growth and investment in the community, often those other buckets are negatively affected. Many companies provide facility-based treatment to reduce those impacts. And when facility treatment alone doesn't allow goals to be reached, on-site and off-site nature-based solutions can be used to fill that void and achieve targets. This is where we think EPR is uniquely qualified to help facilities meet not only their compliance needs, but also their net zero and net positive sustainability goals. I like to think this is a pretty simple concept as it's laid out here, just looking at kind of pluses and minuses. But when you actually try to quantify these themes, things get a lot more complicated. But don't worry, we're here to help. Next slide. So we have developed a quantitative modeling tool that we call the NAPSAT, which is short for Nature-Based Assessment Tool, that can assess projects from a pre- and post-condition, reporting and quantifying the change in uplift provided in each of those 5 themes that I mentioned before. When each of those themes is quantified, you can know the true uplift being provided by the dollars invested, compare and contrast project alternatives and know which alternatives provide the best return on investment, quantify metrics for tracking sustainability goals, identify projects that provide the most uplift and the metrics that you care about, and maybe best of all, provide meaningful metrics that tell a more complete and compelling sustainability story. Next slide. Outputs from the tool provide the science-based data and reporting to support sustainability and SDG goals. On the left of this slide are the sustainability disclosure standards that we tailor our reporting to fit. This is a rapidly evolving space. Anyone that works in it knows that. So our plan is to evolve with the market as disclosures become more standardized. And with the detail that the tool provides, reports can easily be tailored to client-specific needs. Next slide. Okay, so I'd like to show one quick example of meaningful metrics. This is a story of evaluating project impacts, compensatory mitigation, and uplift provided beyond mitigation requirements. Next slide. So this is a facility currently being constructed in South Carolina that some of you may recognize. The actual facility is not important here, as we're interested here in talking more about how the analysis is done. Since we're working on part of the mitigation for this facility, we worked with SCDOT to use the NAPSAT tool to estimate the impacts from the site development and then compare to the uplift being provided by the mitigation that's being done. Next slide. Oh, no, you go. Oh, still there, Cynthia?
Yeah.
Oh,
Where
sorry.
can
You freaked me out because everything froze for a second. I was like, oh my God, our internet.
They
All
were
right.
still good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Whew, a little heart attack there. Okay, so we conducted two analyses here. One was looking at the effects of developing the facility alone, and then a second analysis that looked at the facility implementation plus the regulatory required mitigation for the project. So for the facility, there were ultimately 4 mitigation sites that were used. One was purchase of existing mitigation credits from a mitigation bank. 2 others were large conservation tracts that were primarily preservation approaches. And the 4th was a large stream restoration project that EPR is leading that includes about 20 miles of stream restoration. Next slide. Since I've got limited time, I'm jumping kind of directly to the summary pages for the analysis, but realize that the tool provides quite a bit of detail and currently outputs about 43 different individual parameters within those 5 themes that I discussed before. Here we see some of the main parameters that are summarized, such as changes in runoff, groundwater flow, stream flow, changes in nitrogen, phosphorus, erosion, carbon sequestered, habitats. This summary provides the parameters shown over a 50-year project life, which was selected for this example in the scenario that we ran. The tool calculates annual changes for each theme and parameter. So looking at different time scales, different project lives is as simple as the click of a button. Next slide. So presenting that information in perhaps a more visual way, or at least I hope a more visual way, we can look at percent change over the selected project life. So I'll explain this a little bit here, what we've got. So to understand these graphs, percent change is shown on the x-axis on the bottom and can go either positive or negative. So if the practices were evaluated and had no impact at all, you would not see any colored bars in this graph. There would be 0 change and therefore no data graphed. We've color coded what we consider positive changes in green and negative changes in red. So some parameters like erosion and runoff, we consider positive changes if they go negative as a result of the practices. And other parameters like carbon sequestration and habitats are considered positive if they go positive. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't think the actual percentages here are probably as important as looking at the trends. So interestingly, we can see that there are some positive changes predicted in specific parameters for this facility implementation itself, which may not be intuitive. But for example, taking erodible agricultural land out of production is actually predicted to reduce erosion and nitrogen. Mm-hmm. But as we factor in the mitigation along with that, we see these very large positive improvements in water quality parameters and in habitat parameters. But we also see there's still some parameters where maybe we're not getting as much uplift as we would like to see. So that may be where different approaches, different mitigation site selection could help better inform getting those co-benefits and seeing those uplift. So in summarizing all that, I want to make 2 main points. By actually quantifying change and uplift, we get a much more complete picture of how mitigation and nature-based solutions provide offsets and benefits to the watershed. And the second point is that by using this information, we can target nature-based solutions and mitigation practices that are the most effective at offsetting impacts, provide the most co-benefits, and help us all tell a more compelling sustainability story. Next slide. As another example, we evaluated a mitigation project that was done by SCDOT in the past, provided those uplift numbers, and you can see that those uplift numbers on the left can be tied directly to the state's SDG goals in certain categories. on the right-hand side there. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that printout there from the Sustainable Development Report website. EPR has been working for the past couple years as part of a Sustain SC panel to identify opportunities to improve South Carolina's SDG index rank relative to other states. So one project alone, as we're showing here, probably doesn't move the needle very much. But what if all of the mitigation and conservation work that's been done in South Carolina were evaluated and summarized? That's work that's already been completed and is benefiting the state. It's just never been looked at and evaluated in this way, to our knowledge. So to advance sustainability efforts, we believe the future has to focus on better accounting and documentation of accomplishments that are achieved and science-based decision support to identify projects that provide the best bang for the buck. Last slide. So in conclusion, we're excited about the future of South Carolina and the state's vision for sustainability. We're very honored to be a part of it and look forward to working with Sustain SC and each of you to help tell a developing story. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. Does anyone have any questions? I didn't see any questions come into the chat. It's great stuff. I especially love that slide you just talked about looking at the state holistically and measuring how we have made some advances.
Yeah,
it's very exciting. Great. All right. Well, you have Kevin's information. You have his email address, and of course, I will send the recording and the PowerPoint slide, the full deck, to all of our participants and those that registered today. So without further ado, I am going to pass it off to Tori Grayson. And Tori is with Water and Land Solutions. Tori, what you got today?
Hey, thanks, Cynthia, and Sustain South Carolina. We are excited to have an opportunity to speak to this audience and showcase a bit about our company. We're a little bit different of a company, but I'll get into that in a minute. Just to introduce myself, as Cynthia mentioned, my name is Tori Grayson. I'm the general manager of South Carolina and Georgia for Water and Land Solutions. And my role within the organization is to oversee our existing project operations and also to develop additional mitigation projects within the Southeast region. We're excited because we really think there's a lot of overlap with what our company is doing and mitigation in general in South Carolina is doing, and this Resilient State Land and Water Action Platform Accelerator. So we can go ahead and do the next slide, please. So just a little bit more of an overview here to go with this slide. Water and Land Solutions is part of a platform of companies held by Mitigation Investment Holdings. And across our platform, we're excited to have over 120 mitigation projects. The dots that are shown here on this map are actually our offices just within our Water and Land Solutions portion of that platform. So we have offices, obviously, in Charleston, where I'm located, but our headquarters is in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we have a presence in, it looks like 9 other areas. So we collaborate across regions, but this is generally an overview of our Water and Land Solutions footprint. Our primary focus is 404 and 401 mitigation. So what that means is wetlands, streams, and nutrients. We do a variety of different types of projects, but in general, we develop credits to compensate for impacts to those categories. We also do conservation banking in a number of different places, and that's that's protected species mitigation. And we do coastal resilience projects, mostly in South Carolina and Virginia, but we're looking for opportunities to expand that part of our business. In a nutshell, if we can bring a business case to further a conservation goal, we're thrilled to do so. Next slide. Just wanted to highlight our people here in South Carolina. We have, I believe, almost 100 employees across our overall platform, and 40 currently in Water and Land Solutions portion of the platform. And then specifically in South Carolina, the 8 of us shown here are focused on South Carolina. And just to briefly give a quick overview, Matt Butler is actually located in North Carolina, but supports us in South Carolina. He's been managing multiple projects for us and helping develop additional projects, and specializes in adjacent markets like coastal resilience. Chris Carter is our Vice President of Mitigation Services. He and I have been working together for over 10 years through some various company changes, and have developed a really good rapport. Ann Clark came to us from the DNR. She works out of our Charleston office and is going on 2 years with our company. Larry Cushman, who's currently a consultant for us, but is coming on full-time in May. Once he's currently a college professor at Anderson University, and we're waiting for him to finish his semester. Myself there in the bottom left, Glenn Kilgore, who I've also been working with for over 10 years. Maxwell Linder, who is an environmental scientist that came to us from doing some stream restoration projects in Colorado, is going on 3 years with the company. And Bob Perry, he's got a long career under his belt at the South Carolina DNR, has been instrumental in conservation in South Carolina, and really is kind of a sage to both the folks in South Carolina here and across our larger platform. We collaborate a lot with other offices and regions with Water and Land Solutions, and also a number of consultants and technical providers in South Carolina and Georgia as well. Next slide. This is a map of our South Carolina specific projects. This represents an investment of over $68 million into this space in South Carolina. And that's associated with land and the costs, all of the costs associated with generating and providing wetland stream mitigation credits. We're proud to say that these projects add up into the tens of thousands of acres. That acreage is emphasized in freshwater wetlands, tidal wetlands, streams, associated buffers, and adjacent uplands. Many of these projects are contributions to regional and statewide conservation initiatives like the Kawasi Basin, the Ace Basin, the Green Belt, which is around the greater Charleston area, and others. Each project is already or will be protected in perpetuity by a conservation easement held by a qualified easement holder. Water and Land Solutions and most mitigation providers in South Carolina seek out accredited local land trusts to hold conservation easements. Some of the land trusts that we enjoy partnering with in these endeavors include Low Country Land Trust, Congaree Land Trust, Upstate Forever, Natural Land Trust, PD Land Trust, Open Land Trust, and Catawba Valley Land Trust. Next slide, please. This slide shows our mitigation banks that are approved currently in South Carolina. We have 5 mitigation banks that we are the agent, manager, and or owner of. We sell wetland and stream credits to permit holders in the shaded green areas on the map here. And we also can facilitate outside service area credit sales if they're requested and approved on a case-by-case basis by the Corps of Engineers. Next slide. This map shows our anticipated approvals this year. So actually doubling our approval size to 10 mitigation banks. We have more coming in following years, but 10 mitigation banks would make us, I believe, the largest mitigation banker in South Carolina. Next slide. So this slide discusses a line of business that's a little unique to our region in South Carolina, and it's permittee responsible mitigation. It's just a little background on permittee responsible mitigation, or our role in it in South Carolina. Is we have 7 different permittee responsible mitigation sites in South Carolina, and what those are large restoration, enhancement, and preservation projects that are tailored to individual permittees. South Carolina staff has unique experience in the permittee responsible mitigation space, and looks forward to turning large impacts into opportunities for conservation goals. Another unique thing about Water and Land Solutions is that our staff and our investors have pioneered a system to de-risk permit holders by guaranteeing mitigation contractually to permittees and by financially assuring performance in-house and collaborating with stakeholders to find alignment in conservation outcomes. There's three drivers of mitigation acreage in South Carolina's history. There's mitigation banks, there's permittee responsible mitigation, and there's kind of an other category related to FERC or violations or retroactive mitigation. But in total, the mitigation space in South Carolina has resulted in approximately 300,000 acres of conservation. Many of the conservation areas we think of in South Carolina were outcomes from mitigation, including things like Botany Bay and properties within the Ace Basin, et cetera. Next slide, please. This is a bit of a case study, just to highlight how unique South Carolina is in doing mitigation. We had 2 recent and similar permitted OEM facilities in South Carolina and Georgia, respectively. And the 2 core districts and states take a very different approach to PRM and in lieu fee when impacts are either too large for a mitigation bank or there aren't mitigation bank credits. So just kind of highlighting here information that all was in public notices. The Scout Motors facility in South Carolina, the permit for this facility included a little over 69 acres of wetland impacts, a little over 38 acres of pond impacts, and almost 35,700 or so linear feet of tributaries. The resulting mitigation is one of the things that we in South Carolina are very proud of. The wetland mitigation acreage is 35 times larger than the acreage of the impacts. Many times we get in the mitigation space, we get bogged down in credit calculations, but in general, the acreage is being that many multiples of the impact area is very unique in South Carolina. The stream mitigation linear footage is 7 times larger than the impacted linear footage of tributaries. Totals up to, I believe, over 40 miles of mitigation. It really stands out when you look at this very similar mitigation project and outcome in Georgia, which is the Hyundai plant off 95, or sorry, off 16, in the Ogeechee watershed. Now, this this permit was issued using a combination of stream credits from the mitigation bank and the in lieu fee bank in Georgia. And the permitted impacts are 257 acres of wetlands and the linear and 763 linear feet of tributaries. The ratios here, or is the wetland mitigation acreage is about 1.7 times larger than the acres of impact. And stream mitigation, although it's not shown on this slide, stream mitigation was purchased from an approved mitigation bank in this case. So what I'm getting at with this slide is that in South Carolina, impacts are unique opportunities to put land and water into conservation at a very large scale. And it's unique to South Carolina. And it's something that really highlights the conservation ethic of the state and over a long period of time. It's something we're very proud to be a part of, and really enjoy looking for opportunities to further. And with that, I appreciate it, Cynthia, and open for any questions if any have come in.
Great. Thank you, Tori. It is so nice to hear that we are beating Georgia in our mitigation and in our conservation. So always happy about that. No questions came in the chat so far. You did have a fan reaction that said you rock. So
Thank you.
there was a shout out. All right, so if we don't have questions now for Tori, again, he, like Kevin, their email addresses are at the beginning of the slideshow. So now we are going to turn it over to our final presenter, who is Ross Nelson, and he is with Westervelt. And here is Ross's first slide. And Ross, if you will come on and take over the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia. Hopefully you have me online now. It should be there. It's great to be here today. I'm going to try and keep introduction to Westervelt as quick as I can, keep it as short as possible, because what I'd really like to do, if folks are interested, is at a certain point is get Tori and Kevin back on the line, and if folks have specific questions about mitigation, how it fits within the state, I mean, we'd love to have a conversation around that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Kevin, one thing, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you. You're kind of in and out a little bit.
You're having trouble hearing me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll sit a little closer. Is that any better?
It is.
Okay. All right. Good deal. I feel like I'm taking up the screen, but hopefully the slides are predominating now. But
that's right.
All right. A little bit about me. My company, my original company, American Mitigation Company, is a company I started in 2018 with a couple of partners of mine that I've done several mitigation banks with. And I ran that company until 2023, the very end of 2023, when we were acquired by Westervelt Ecological Services. So my presentation today will go through a little bit about Westervelt and bring in some of the AMC projects that I've worked on over the years. But I've had the distinct pleasure in my career of working with Tori over the years. We've been a part of the same company at times, and some of his staff members have worked with me as well. And Kevin and I have overlapped on several projects, including one that's been discussed here today. So one of the unique aspects of this industry is oftentimes we do get to collaborate with companies that might be competitors in the industry. There are times we'll work together to accomplish restoration and conservation goals. So it's great to have this opportunity to share some space with them to talk about who we are and what we do. So we'll move on to the next slide. You can skip ahead 2 slides, actually. All right. So Westervelt is actually grew up as a pulp and paper company starting in 1884 in South Bend, Indiana. The company is entering into its 140th year and remains to this day a family-owned company. One unique fact of Westervelt is that the primary way that it got itself going is they patented what became the pop-up brown paper bag that we still use in grocery stores today. And so that invention and that discovery of how to make that bag is what led the company to grow its forest products division and grow as a company and expand for a while into own and operating mills throughout the Southeast, and then eventually evolved into what is now a completely different version of the Westervelt company that we'll get into. So you can go to the next slide. So Westervelt company, over the years, as it divested itself of pulp and paper products, the company, being a family-owned company, had acquired over 600,000 acres of land, primarily in the Southeast, throughout Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. And from there, it basically began to branch out into various industries that touched their landholdings. So Westervelt Forestry Resources grew out of the Westervelt companies and their land holdings. Westervelt Wood Products, and the company still operates 2 specialty lumber mills, and eventually they actually began acquiring land in New Zealand. And now I think they own 30,000 acres, or we own 30,000 acres of land in New Zealand. Well, with all of the land holdings and a growing conservation ethic within the company over the past 140 years, the need for ecological services actually expanded, starting out west and moving back to the Southeast. And in 2006, Westervelt Ecological Services was born. It is operated now for close to 20 years, and most recently, its expansion was the acquisition of my company, American Mitigation Company, to become a part of the Westervelt family. So again, we're a privately held company, family-run company that's in its 5th generation of family leadership. So it's a really unique company to be a part of, that's a little bit different than others that operate in the mitigation space. Next slide, please. And like I said, the company itself has a true conservation mindset. And being a part of coming out of the forestry industry, we have planted and continue to plant over 6 million, 7 million trees a year. And in 2019, I think the seedling that this gentleman's holding in the picture is supposedly the 100 millionth seedling that was planted by Westervelt. And while a large part of their products have arisen out of the pine industry, with the move and foray into the mitigation space, it obviously entails a lot more types of trees and species that are part of our overall conservation mindset now. And so next slide. And so the values for Westervelt are really now certified with the various standards that they operate under for caring for their land, for caring for the mills, and for caring for their conservation and mitigation projects. The company most recently has started this slogan into concentrating on the 4 E's of what we do. And while we are a privately held company and there is a profit motive behind everything we do, the economics are important. The one thing that we'll never do is sacrifice our environmental mindset, the ethics of the company, and a strive toward quality and excellence in everything we do. So the 4 E's have become the foundation for Westervelt and how we operate. Next slide. And so, like I said, our mission as a company is to continue the family-owned business for absolutely as long as we can, to continue to expand land holdings, and then to treat those resources, both our people and our land, and develop high quality products and solutions. And so Westervelt Ecological Services fits underneath that mindset to really help further the mission of restoration and long-term land stewardship of the ecological habitats that we both own and that we partner with landowners to manage. Our next slide. And so from that perspective, Wes is very similar to Tori's company, Water and Land Solutions, where what we offer are development of mitigation banks and conservation banks. We do full delivery projects as well. That's also referred to as permittee responsible mitigation projects. But because of some of the other resources that we have within our company, we can also offer habitat planning services for a variety of different wildlife species. And we have the ability to partner with landowners in projects, to purchase lands, to build new mitigation projects, and to evaluate whether or not a property is a good mitigation site. So next slide. And we like Water and Land Solutions, operate across the country. We were founded, and Westervelt Ecological Services started in Sacramento, California, and then moved back to the east. Even though the overall Westervelt Companies is headquartered in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a lot of the species and species banks that were growing in California really became the impetus for developing the ecological services side of the company. We now have an office in Charleston that includes me and the guys that work for me here, and we continue to expand our operations around the U.S. Next slide. And so what we do is both on our own lands and in combination with other landowners and businesses and land trusts, we collaborate together to develop quality mitigation projects. Some of this is in the traditional wetland and stream mitigation space, but we also do a large number of species banks and conservation style banks to help further the goal of contributing to the benefit of threatened and endangered species. So currently we have over 30,000 acres of habitat nationwide that we've protected and restored through these various mechanisms. So next slide. To accomplish that, we start by trying to find the appropriate sites for conducting mitigation operations. So as we go through the site selection process, when we find a high quality restoration opportunity or conservation opportunity, then we start working through our process to bring that project to fruition. And again, it may include actually acquiring the land and bringing it underneath Westervelt, or it might include partnering with a landowner to purchase an easement from them to build the mitigation project on their property. But once we have the land set aside and acquired for conservation, we then walk through the process of all the planning, design, and permitting to develop the mitigation site. All projects are placed into a conservation easement, a perpetual conservation easement, then moving into construction and monitoring the performance and long-term management of those projects. Next slide. And ultimately, was there a slide in between there? Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
Well, no, at the core of what we do is a quote from Aldo Leopold, where he said, "Conservation will ultimately boil down to rewarding the private landowner who conserves the public interest." And that's essentially what we have in mind as we enter into any project. While a lot of our lands are privately held, we understand that the benefit of ecological restoration extends far beyond the landowner, and actually it's a benefit to the public, and that's what we strive to accomplish. So restoration to date, again, we have over 35,000 acres managed and protected. We've restored over 70 miles of streams, have planted through the ecological services side over 1.4 million trees. We do have a lot of specialty within tidal marsh restored. And we have projects here in South Carolina that originated through American Mitigation Company and are now a part of Westervelt. But through that, we've restored over 6,000 acres of salt marsh on both the east and west coast. And we protected over 47 species through various conservation bank initiatives. Next slide. And we're experts. You can keep the next slide, please. And much like other firms here, we are experts in mitigation banking. And we have projects that nationwide from California to South Carolina. And you can see the holdings here in South Carolina, various bank opportunities that we have that are available. And I'll talk about one of those in just a second. Next slide. And as experts in this industry, West does have a history of providing training to the Army Corps of Engineers through the Institute of Water Resources. Myself and others within Westervelt have spoken at length with various core districts across the nation to bring to them the private perspective of how the regulations that govern the mitigation banking industry affect what we do, and give the regulators a better understanding of how private businesses can participate in the ecological restoration space. We've done this for the Baltimore district, Charleston district, Los Angeles district, Vicksburg, and we've done it in settings where districts nationwide have been invited into a room for specific training. Next slide, please. And we are experts in complex restoration projects. Next slide, I'll give you two examples and then we'll open it up. But Howland Hill Mitigation Bank is one of our projects here in South Carolina, where we partnered with a local landowner that had owned the property, a family that had owned the property for well over 100 years, and had a desire to generate some alternative income streams for their property to help their family manage this site in perpetuity. In doing so, we protected over 1,300 acres of land for the family. We included over 200 acres of historic rice impoundments that are currently managed for waterfowl as part of the mitigation bank. And that became a critical component for getting this family to the point where they were ready to do additional restoration work on their property. And we've incorporated into this some really small headwater stream restoration that's unique to the Low Country, and have a extensive over 400 acres of pine flatwood savanna that are being restored as part of this project. And we've already started planting longleaf out there. We've seen some response from pitcher plants, and we're creating some unique habitat that not only will benefit some existing species that are out there, such as red-cockaded woodpecker, but also gopher frogs and tiger salamander. Next slide. Next slide. And then the last project I'll mention is one that we did for BMW Woodruff site. This one was a PRM project, a full delivery project that we did in conjunction with the Department of Commerce and Open Space Institute. And this project's a 259-acre site in Clinton, South Carolina, where we are currently under construction, restoring over 7,000 linear feet of stream, enhancing and preserving over 46 acres of wetlands, and ultimately protecting 259 acres of land that will be donated to the U.S. Forest Service when the project is complete. And so with that, I'll end my presentation and we can open it up for questions.
Great. Thank you, Ross. We do not have any questions in the chat, but I definitely liked a lot of the things that I heard you guys say today. And one of the most important ones is that collaboration piece and communicating with each other and collaborating. I think that's what, the South Carolina special sauce is all about, that we're that small state that we can talk to our neighbors and we can become fast friends and get work done quickly for the benefit of our people and planet. So if nobody has any questions, I have a question for each of you. Anybody can answer. What do you all see as the biggest challenge that we're facing now in 2024, 2025 to try and do mitigation or conservation? What is the big obstacle out there that we need to be addressing? And anybody can answer.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's a real challenge to our industry for any conservation that occurs through the Corps of Engineers wetland program is the evolving definition of what actually is a jurisdictional wetland and what's not. And, while the 404 permitting program is just a tool in the toolbox in the conservation world, it has been a critical tool for South Carolina to initiate conservation efforts throughout the state. And with a lack of any state-specific jurisdiction over wetlands, as there are additional impacts to those wetlands, quite frankly, we have resources that are being lost that are not being replaced. And I think that could be a unique challenge to our industry. And, I know other companies do this. I know something that we are willing to do is do partnerships for restoration through grant programs to try and find other avenues for restoring wetlands and streams that might not exist if some of the regulatory oversight of those systems are lost.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And Jarrett Branham has a question in the chat, and this is for anyone. Can you speak about the complexity and benefit to connecting land properties into larger projects, easements, and conservations? Who would like to take that question?
I'm happy to, unless someone else would like to take it.
Tori, you're up.
Well, let me see. Let me pull that chat up. That was a compound question there. Let's see.
Well, it is Jared.
Yeah. So the benefit, the complexity and benefit in connecting lands land properties in the larger projects. So one of the complexities is that is the Corps of Engineers easement, not just in South Carolina, but in general. The type of easement that's required is extremely prohibitive of almost any other uses. So you have to keep that in mind early on in the process. Understand if you are plugging into a bigger public project or conservation goal, is your project a good fit in terms of can the mitigation project fit in with the overall program that you're trying to plug into? A lot of that has to do with allowable uses under the conservation easement. Is there residual land on that parcel that doesn't necessarily need to be in the Corps of Engineers easement, but could be in a secondary easement or kind of differentiated in the easement language? Another complexity that we have from time to time is putting land into public use is a lengthy process of when and how different public groups are able to accept the ownership fee title. What kind of long-term stewardship commitments are they making? Does it fit within those organizations' management program? And these are all considerations that happen really right at the beginning of these projects. We've even had the experience, and I know Ross has as well, of trying to give land to the federal government, which introduces an entire new set of complexities because of the Miscellaneous Receipts Act and the requirements of mitigation in through the 2008 rule in terms of long-term stewardship and financial assurances and site protection and perpetuity. So I hope I didn't just make it more muddy there, Jarrett, but in general, this is something right at the onset of these projects that needs to be considered because, you know, you're plugging into a bigger vision.
Great. Thank you, Tori. Kevin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I was going to say, in kind of in terms of both of those two questions, I think one thing that ties them together is timing and schedule. You know, one of the complexities and challenges of mitigation, especially when you're talking about doing mitigation for some of these large impacts, as South Carolina is growing and attracting corporate clients, you know, that are bringing these big facilities for growth. Getting ahead of those needs and identifying those opportunities, I think, is it's always been a challenge. It's certainly not gotten any easier. But it also ties to the second question of, I think we need to be looking for those large opportunities to connect not just conservation, but also restoration. So when you can connect restoration opportunities with conservation opportunities to do these bigger projects, now you're presenting something that really has a lot of bang for its buck, and you're addressing those mitigation requirements that are now part of the federal rules that are important, required.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And want to thank all of you all. We did have another question in the chat from Holly Welch. Are the presenters currently working with the Land and Water Action Platform? If so, how are you working there? So I think that speaks to the history that you have had with Sustain SC and doing any collaborative projects, I think is what Holly's asking.
I know that we're not working directly with the Land and Water Action Platform, but there's a lot of overlap that occurs from our company with Sustain SC and specifically with Open Space Institute. You know, OSI has been a great collaborator with the Land and Water Action Platform, and all of us have worked with Open Space Institute to put various mitigation projects into the ground. The difference from our perspective is that, you know, we haven't had the funding from corporate donors to help achieve those goals. Ours is typically born out of the permitting process related to impacts to wetlands and streams. So there's not a true mechanism there for donations to support those efforts. Now, I think to tie that back with Jarrett's question, there really is and continues to be an ongoing effort to tie together projects that are adjacent to one another to create habitat corridors and create larger restoration projects. And the Land and Water Action Platform would really be a great tool to help accomplish that.
Correct. And then also, Ethel Bunch, our founder and former CEO, she worked very hard to help protect Wadey's Island and get the funding to conserve part of that. And open space was a very big player in that. And it continues to have some needs at Wadey's Island that Ethel is working with a group down in the Myrtle Beach area on that. And then the other thing I would say is our MOU with the South Carolina Office of Resiliency, and the folks there that are helping to support and to use the GIS tools for our watershed resource registry. And that is something that is being updated currently, and hope to have a big launch so that people can use that tool. It's a fantastic tool, and it does address the things that we've been talking about today, which is, identifying that property that needs mitigation, and then making sure that where we are putting industrial sites, that we are having less of an impact on our natural resources. So we've come to the conclusion of today's technical assistance webinar. I know I learned a lot. I certainly want to thank the three presenters for taking the time today to help educate us, and very excited about what's going on in South Carolina. Also, we are doing technical assistance webinars each and every month. We want to educate folks out there and want to bring you the resources that you need for your own business. So our next one will be on April the 4th. And you will want to tune in then. We will have presenters specifically talking about measurement, reporting, and recording. So we have three of our Sustain SC member companies that will be all for it's a merger strategies and then decide for action. So please join us again on April the 4th. And thank you again to Kevin and to Tori and Ross for your presentation today. Hope everyone has a fantastic day, and please check out our website, sustainsouthcarolina.org. Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you.